Hi, I'm Amoroso. I want to welcome you to Tag Talk. This is a new video series where I'll be talking about issues in cybersecurity, but in particular, digging in on some of the really important cybersecurity commercial vendors that you deal with. It's not easy to get sort of insightful guidance, unbiased guidance on vendors, and I think you'll get that here. So I hope you stick around. This is a companion series to reports that we put on the Tag website that you can download. So you watch the video, you read the report, and that's going to give you a lot of insight into these mostly larger vendors. Maybe as we get further into the series, we'll start dealing with some mid-size and smaller vendors. But today, I want to talk to you about a very fine company called KNOWBE4. They do security awareness training. They do some other things. And man, they've been synonymous with a really iconic guy named Stu Showerman. Most of you probably know him. He's an awesome guy. He's made a lot of contributions to our industry. And I think that it's hard to think about KNOWBE4 without sort of connecting it to Stu. But interestingly, very recently, he's turning over the reins to Brian Palma, that some of you might know from his days at Trellix, and he's been in the industry for a while. So it'll be super interesting to see how the company sort of jockeys what I see as potentially a turbulent future just in cybersecurity in general. So it's not going to be easy for any company, much less one doing security awareness training. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the issues that they're going to have to deal with. Now, a lot of you think of KNOWBE4 as the company that hired Kevin Mitnick. Mitnick joined them, for a period of time. I remember thinking that was very, very interesting that he was part of that group. Mitnick, if you share a generation with me, you remember, is one of the iconic hackers who kind of, in some sense, invented the whole art of hacking, and he became part of the company and raised a lot of the awareness in an awareness company. For me, it's hard to separate Stu and Kevin Mitnick and some of the other names that have been part of this company. But I don't have to tell you what security awareness training is. You all know how that works. There's fish testing and other types of things that we do to try and make sure that humans do two things. One is make good decisions, and two, avoid bad decisions. It's kind of, they go together, but they require different activities. And I think KNOWBE4 has done a pretty good job of that. But let me tell you about some of the things we included in our report, the observations we make as analysts. And this is where maybe some of it could be a little bit more, maybe I would call it sort of honest observation on the industry and certainly on the company. Number one, I've noticed in doing this for the last 40 years that security awareness training is a very low barrier to entry for new companies. When we try to count firms that are doing awareness training, we almost stop at 200. There's so many, it's a long tail of companies that do this, and a lot of them are pretty good. This isn't like you're creating freaking nuclear calculus to do this. It's actually pretty straightforward to train people on this. And I know that, when you get into human risk management and these platforms, maybe there'd be the reasonable argument made that there's more technology than just sort of guiding people to make decisions. But I mean, that's what it comes down to. So observation number one really is that there's a low barrier to entry. And I think with AI, you're going to see a lot of new companies doing this. It's going to create a lot of opportunity and competition for some of the companies that are there now. So that's number one. Number two is that as we see our industry, cybersecurity, become more and more a non-growth industry, let's be honest, budgets are flat. And anybody who thinks that we're going to see the same skyrocketing growth in cybersecurity in the next few years that we saw in the last few, I don't know what planet you're living on, but you ain't living on the planet I'm living on. I mean, we're going to see things flatten out. And I think awareness training may be one of those areas where you could potentially see a chopping block. Like if you're going to cut, do you cut your SASE network? Do you cut your FIDO authentication? Or do you maybe find a way to do security awareness training in a cheaper manner? I don't know, but I worry that it might be one of the things that does becomes identified as a potential budget cut. The third is that I think any company in this area, certainly KNOWBE4, is going to have to expand into adjacent areas. They kind of already have with the acquisition of a really nice company called Egress. I've known their principals for many years. Tony Pepper's a friend of mine. They bought the company. They do email security and encryption, kind of adjacent, but it's a little bit more functional. I think that's a wise move. I think it does make sense to expand, and our advice and guidance to KNOWBE4 would be to definitely find ways to use adjacencies to grow their business. But let me just get right to the biggest problem of all, and that's artificial intelligence. I mean, let's be honest. When we're training humans to make good decisions, that assumes that there's humans making decisions. I mean, that's always been the case for business for as long as we've had business. But boy, are we at a weird time now where automation, AI, both generative and agentic, kind of making a lot of the decisions for you. I'll give you an example. We say phishing. How do we get rid of phishing? Well, you get rid of email. And how do you get rid of email? You get rid of it with agentic AI. Like, could it be the case that I have an agentic AI that just sort of does my communication and it communicates with my business partners who have their agentic AI? It seems like we're 3 inches from that. That is an existential risk for companies like KNOWBE4 and others. If we don't need to train humans, then what business are you in if you're training humans? That's why I think that adjacency is so important for KNOWBE4 and other companies that are part of this. So we will keep a close watch. Look, they've had good management. It's a very fine company. They're well run. They, have good products. I have no issue with what they do. I just have an issue with AI being a pretty important kind of disruptor and wild card in this area for sure. So if you found any of this interesting or useful, I hope you'll download the report that we have on our website. It's there for free, and I hope you'll go grab it. So stick around for our next videos you watch on this series. We're going to be covering companies like this, and I look forward to seeing you. Thanks.